Today, our guest for our weekly episode of Thriving in Construction, the podcast, is Daphne Gurri. She is the owner and principal of Gurri Matute, PA, an architect and interior design firm based here in Miami, Florida. Ms. Gurri is a registered architect, interior designer, and lead accredited professional with over 30 years of experience who founded Gurri Matute in 1996. Gurri Matute is an award-winning firm that focuses on clients in the aviation, civil, federal, educational, and healthcare sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ms. Daphne Gurri. Good morning, Daphne. Thank you for being here in Thriving in Construction, the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, Patricia.
Thank you so much for being a part of this new journey. And I know we work together. We've been collaborators in multiple projects. I would like the listeners to understand more about your company, who you are as an individual. Tell us about your company. And I know you have won awards and you work for multiple clients. So give us some understanding of your journey.
Sure. Yes, I founded the company 25 years ago, and I got my first break with American Airlines. So back in 1999, they were the first major client. Before that, I had another client, West Bryan CDC. And with those clients, I was able to kind of start the company and work very hard to develop the reputation in the aviation sector. And then from there, that kind of branched out into other sectors such as civic and institutional, federal work, and educational facilities, and now most recently, healthcare. So in 25 years, our company focuses in those four key market sectors: aviation, civic, institutional, federal, educational facilities, and healthcare. And again, I founded the company 25 years ago. I am joined by my husband and partner in 1999. And now we're very happy to have our main office in Miami, Florida, and a branch office in Deerfield Beach, Florida.
Excellent. So what prompted you to start your company? What motivated you? And who were you before that? So first, there's two questions. You're an architect. So what got into you? How did you decide to become an architect? And then how do you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great, funny story. So there are no architects in my family. So my mother was a school teacher. My dad worked in property management. And of course, my mom's idea was, a different idea for a woman, which was find a career path that is going to allow you to have children. So being a teacher, obviously, she thought that was a good career path. And we're talking about a completely different generation of ideas. Well, the concept of going into architecture and construction was completely foreign. So when I decided to study architecture, she was concerned. But how I got into architecture was really by accident. I was an art major, and I was very, very good in textile design, ceramics. And my boyfriend at the time suggested, why didn't I explore the curriculum of architecture in college? And thanks to my ex-boyfriend, in reality, I stumbled into the career path, not knowing that I was going to like it. And my impression of what architecture was that it had a lot of numbers, and I wasn't really a fan of math. So I had to overcome my own prejudice of what I was going to have to be doing as an architect. I didn't really even know what an architect did. But then when I started getting into the career at Miami-Dade College, and then I transferred to UM, I really fell in love with the career path, because it was a way that I could kind of blend my artistic, creative talent and put it into the creation of space, which is basically what an architect does.
Yes.
But yes, when I studied architecture, my mother especially, she was kind of like really annoyed by how much I studied and worked in school, and long hours, and coming home at 5 o'clock in the morning from the design studio. And I don't think she quite understood it. So at the time when I was coming out of school, which is, back in 1988, I graduated from UM. Then at that time, I moved into the workplace. And again, it was I think a little bit of a shocker for her how much we worked and how passionate I was about it. But eventually I did end up becoming an entrepreneur, which was the ultimate shocking point for her, because she was like, you're going in the exact opposite direction of what a woman should do, because how are you going to be an entrepreneur and at the same time raise a family? So there was a lot of, let's say, generational shock for her in what I was doing. My dad was extremely proud of me because he always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And so it was the yin and the yang. He was very happy and she was very concerned. But at the end of the day, she embraced it. And they supported me through that journey of those first few years, which were brutal. Brutal at the time. When I founded the company, I already had one child and I was pregnant with my second. Not a good time to start a business. And I was in the process of buying a house. Not a good time to start a business. But through all that, I made it through. And those first, I want to say the first 5 years were brutal, especially the first 3. And then after that, it started to kind of take its way.
Which is pretty typical on actually many companies. I forget the percentage, but I want to say 70% maybe of the companies don't make it to 5 years. Right. So the first 3 years are brutal, and the first 5, because you're trying to develop cash flow, you're trying to develop a momentum and in generating revenue and all these things at the same time, right? So what was the journey being pregnant, having the company? What was that like? What do you have to do you're a great mother. How many kids do you have now?
I have 3.
3, right? So you have that value because your mother made sure that you got it, right? She instilled it in you, and you wanted to be successful in your business, and you're very proud of your product when you design. So how do you cope between the two, being a woman, a mother, and being a business owner?
Well, the first thing is you cannot carry the idea of victim in your head. If you have that in your head, you're never going to move forward. You cannot have that negative feeling. So throughout the process, I did struggle. I did have issues where men in the industry did not respect me and said things, it is what it is. But, you have to get strong and kind of brush those things off. And ultimately, you prove people your intelligence, your experience, and your passion and your happiness. So all those things together kind of make you successful. They tend to diminish all the negativity that's around you. So if somebody says something to you, oh, this is not for you, or you only got this job because you're a woman, things that have been said to me. Oh, you're only here because we need to satisfy a small business goal. Things that have been said to me. Those things, you hear them, they're annoying, they bother you, but you brush them off and you prove people through your work.
Yeah, they think that you're here, you're not because you've earned it, but and they qualify. Exactly. But that doesn't matter. That happens a lot.
It happens a lot, and that's my number one, I would say, recommendation for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, especially a young woman. You are going to face people questioning your experience. That doesn't mean that they're questioning your ability as a woman. They could be questioning your experience, and those two things, it's important to distinguish. Because once you distinguish that somebody, when you want to get a surgery, you want to go with the most experienced surgeon, right? Not the one that just did it once or twice, but the one that's done it 20 times. But it's important to be able to distinguish that. But at the end of the day, you do have to work very hard to demonstrate your experience, and you will prevail, provided that you don't stay stuck on that.
Absolutely. In that mindset.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've also realized that, but you don't let that face you, and you don't even think about it.
You don't think about it.
And it's understandable. Only 10% of women are in the industry. So there's a lot of people that have never really worked with a woman architect or a woman project manager. there's a lot of people in this world. It's so in some more diverse cities they see more women, but in general it's only 10%. That's not a lot for the number of people that are required in this field, right?
Yeah, I agree. In the field of architecture, when I graduated, 50% of my graduating class were women. The statistics have not changed, sadly. I've graduated already 30 years ago. Okay, so I graduated in 1988, so quite a long time ago. It hasn't changed. There are still 50% of women are graduating from the schools of architecture, yet you do not have 50% of women in the field, let's say 10 years after they have graduated. And the American Institute of Architects is trying to figure that out. They're trying to collect data. Right now, they only have data on the number of women that have graduated, the number of women that have applied for a license and received it. And then you even have a smaller number of women that are licensed and have their own business.
Yeah.
It's a tiny percentage in the 90,000 plus members that we have in our organization.
What do you think prevents them to owning their business? Or, I'm assuming probably your mother's thoughts and her thought process is still very vivid in a lot of heads.
Sure. And I think a lot of it has to do with making a decision to raise your child, which is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to want to take time off. But we know that this career that you and I are in, architecture and construction, is brutal. It's unforgiving. The deadlines are harsh. You have to comply with sometimes unreasonable requests from your clients to finish projects in a schedule that no one could do, but you still have to do it, right? So it is a difficult career to put up with, and then at the same time be of child rearing age. So there was a lot of work-life balances for me. I couldn't have not succeeded if I did not have a network of people around me that were supportive of me and actually helped me. My first one was my husband. So my husband is my partner, but without his support, I wouldn't have been able to, take time off, let's say, to go to a meeting. And, he would have to stay back to do something else. I had a nanny at home who helped me. And also, of course, my parents were there for me at the beginning in a small role, but they were there. They were supportive. So it's always important to have a network when you're going to embark on any business, starting a business from scratch.
Did you have money when you started?
No, I didn't have any money. There was I did everything wrong. But then, your success comes from your perseverance to want to succeed. Failure is not an option. In reality, when I started the business, I was an associate vice president in an engineering company. So when I had joined the engineering company, I was just managing the architecture department on behalf of another woman who was on maternity leave. The owner liked very much what I was doing, but I was unlicensed at the time. I became registered, and when I became registered as an architect, he offered me a position of associate vice president of his firm to officially lead the architecture department, which I was very proud to do. But then subsequently to that, he decided to change his business model and kind of only focus on the core service of engineering. And he basically eliminated some departments, at which time I was pretty much out of a job. So, at that point, I had already gone through 2 or 3 layoffs in the 1990s. And I was tired. I told my husband, Jose, I said, that's it. 4th one, I'm done. So it can't get much worse than this. I'm going to start my own business and see how it goes. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? That, who's going to fire me? I can't get laid off or fired, except by my client, but I can control that. And so that I didn't have the money. I didn't have anything. I had to really make some magic there with the first clients that I had and be very careful with how we were spending the money. We basically didn't pay ourselves for 2 years at all. Wasn't making any money.
Yeah.
And so we had to make some sacrifices in our family, to be able to make that happen. And he had a good job the first 2 years. He was still working. He was employed. I founded the company July 1st, 1996, and he joined in August of 1999. So 2.5 years later, 3 years later, he joined. But during that time, he had the health insurance, he had the steady income, and that allowed me to get the ball rolling those first 3 years.
That helps. So what's the biggest challenge you've had as a mother raising your kids and in the business? In the 25 years?
25 years.
In business, what's the biggest challenge that you recall? That was a challenge, but it transformed you in some way. The lesson you learned, what happened?
Well, the pain is not being able to be there with your children at all times. So I remember right at the beginning, we were again being challenged with a task that was impossible, a timeline that was physically impossible, with no other alternative but to either do it or fail. And during this time, it was when we were working at the airport with American Airlines, and we had this deadline that was insane. Jose and I had to work literally around the clock. We were sleeping about 3 to 4 hours a day. That's it. So during that time, if you can imagine, you're not seeing your kids. And I remember one night we had to go back to work. We went home for dinner around 7 o'clock, and our 2 kids, after dinner, they stayed by the window crying. And that was the vision that we had when we left to go back to work. And it was heartbreaking. It was truly heartbreaking. So I think that was the hardest thing, and knowing that you're not going to get your time back. So you have to make some decisions and prioritize. And at that point, we really didn't have a choice. We had to do it. If we were going to succeed against all odds, we had to do this. And our children were little. They were like 3 and 1. They weren't understanding what was going on. But in order to build something, you have to do a tremendous amount of personal sacrifice, which is one of the reasons why a lot of businesses don't succeed, because you don't have any idea how much sacrifice you're going to have to give something to make it work. But we did that. And then at the end of the day, as time went by, I learned how to depend on other people. I learned how to trust in other people, to build a team, to allow myself the ability to take time off. And then, I was very happy when my 3rd child came along to be able to have a lot of time to go to all of her events when she was in preschool, elementary school. So I want to say the first 2, they suffered more because we weren't around. That's the bottom line.
That's the same with me. Same.
I can imagine.
And the guilt, you feel guilty.
Guilt. Yeah, you do feel guilty.
You feel torn,
You do.
But then you're right, when you embark in this journey, and not only that, and I'd like for you to talk about success, because you've mentioned that a lot. I'm not allowing myself to fail. It's a decision, and what success looks like for you. But I know that has a lot of implications, because you have a family, you have your business, right?
Right.
So what's success for you? But there's also penalties associated.
Sure.
There's pain related to not doing something. The consequences of not succeeding in the eyes of the client are very painful for us. It could mean losing everything that you have.
Right. It is. So how I define success, I think it's, there's a really like how you're viewed by your family at the end. I think that's the biggest judgment call from my children, my husband. My parents have already passed away. I know my parents were very proud of me. I know they were very, very proud, and they were in pain. My mom was in pain all the time when I was building the company up. She was in pain, and she was like, "Why are you doing this? Just give it up. You could be an employee." And I'm like, "No, there's something so much bigger here at stake. I'm creating something that doesn't exist." And she didn't get it, but I know that she was very proud of it. And yes, that's the trade-off, that you are going to give something up. But yeah, I measure success. Obviously, we have built a business. We have I want to say like a name, a brand. We've built a name, and people know us. So there's a success, and they know us by the work that we do. They know us personally, and they know that we're personally involved in their projects. So that is important to our clients. So success is how I'm viewed by my family, my husband, my children. Of course, there's a financial success, building something and growing the people around us. So we have one associate that's been with us for 14 years. He's worked on your project. Fabio's been wonderful. 14 years with us. And our bookkeeper.
Wow, Fabio has been with you
14 years. And Renee.
Since he was
he's super young, came in. And, I take pleasure seeing how we help people to become the best that they can be. So that's how I view the success too. What I give back to the community also, now that I'm at a certain stage in my career, that I can start to have a little bit of time to give back. So yeah, Jose is great. Jose is wonderful at giving back as well.
And your husband, you have a really amazing marriage also.
Yes, we do.
So that also has a little bit of contribution.
A lot. It's a struggle. It is. It's 24/7 with your husband or wife, which can be very trying, but it's very rewarding too. Again, because we're in it together, so he understands the sacrifices, that why it is that we're doing something. We're on the same page.
Yes. So what do you do? You work together and you have the same suffering and the same pains. And it's my case too. So how do you do, what do you do to maintain that love and passion, that the relationship, the connection that is a husband and wife, just two people, regular people, nothing to do with work. What do you do to keep that out alive?
We force ourselves to have time off. That's one of my most fun things that I do is that when I'm on vacation, I'm already thinking, where should we go next? And then that's what kind of like the carrot for me at the end, the carrot on the stick, that I'm like thinking about where's the next place we're going to go to. And, spending time with the kids too. Now they're much older, so they have their own lives. But yeah, spending time with your spouse is really important. Like having like a date night and stuff like that. Doing something that is not related. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. To try to do a date night without talking about work, that's hard.
But it's important to do it.
It's important.
Very important. And it's just not hard. I think what it is to get your brain out of the survival mode, that you have to produce, you got to do this, you have to do this, get yourself in that. Yes, a lot of times fear takes over.
Absolutely.
And you think this has to happen now.
Oh, one thing we're doing now is ballroom dancing.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, we're doing ballroom dancing just for fun, and that has become like the biggest distraction, so we're dancing with this school called Dance Sway, and we're not going to competitions or anything like that. That would be too much time involvement. But we did dance in the showcase in the summer, and then there's another one in the winter, and we know how to waltz, tango, foxtrot.
I'm pretty sure you guys are good because
salsa.
You have the salsa move.
Yeah, so that's the fun part. That's what we're trying to do right now to get ourselves distracted and. We kind of like sneak out for a private lesson and stuff like that.
I have to talk to Emilio because since before we were getting married, he told me, I'm Dominican, so I love dancing. I really do. And if I could, I would dance all the time. I forget about eating. When I'm dancing, it's crazy. And he said that he was going to do that. Like, not take salsa classes or something. I'm still waiting.
It's fun. It's a great distraction.
Super.
And then, of course, Jose is a marathon runner. So he has his own things. And that's important too. It's like in order to be a happy couple, each of you have to have something that you're doing on your own, right?
Absolutely. So going back to the business life and contribution, you have been the president of the Society of American Military Engineers, the Miami chapter. South Florida chapter. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Well, that was after my mom passed away. My dad passed away in 2013. My mother passed away in 2014. And immediately I felt a tremendous void, an emptiness that I had to fill. And I had spent so many years catering to their needs and taking care of them. And I had this void, and I decided that I was going to fill it by giving back, because I didn't have an opportunity to give back, between being a mother and taking care of my mom.
Which, by the way, being a mother is giving back.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not necessarily seen like that, but it is giving back. It fulfills you. And taking care of your parents is totally giving back.
It is.
That was wise, what you've done.
And then, you can't get those years back, and I don't regret it. My business suffered during those times, especially in the last couple of years with my mom, but I don't regret it 1 minute, because I'm never going to get that time back. But when she did pass away, I was devastated with the loss and felt very empty. And I decided that it was time to give back. So I had become vice president of the American Institute of Architects Miami chapter. And I gave it up back in 10 years prior to, because I just didn't have the time to ultimately become president. And so, I got all the way to being VP. Then I said I backed away from the organization because of the lack of time. Then the Society of American Military Engineers came in like perfect timing. Literally like 3 weeks after my mom passed away, there was this conference. It was happening in Orlando. And I told Jose, I'm getting in the car and I'm just driving. And I was totally unprepared. Didn't have a black tie outfit, nothing. I didn't even say goodbye to my kids. They were like, "What happened to Mom?" She's gone. She needs to go out for a drive. She'll be back in 3 days. And I came back. And at that time, when I went to Orlando, I met some beautiful architects there. And they embraced me immediately to participate in the Architectural Practice Committee. That's what it used to be called before. Now it's called the Community of Interest. And then, I decided that I was going to get engaged not only at the national level, but at the local level. And then I started becoming involved and started a program called STEAM Speaks, which is a program to basically get young girls and boys, but mostly girls, aware of what the architecture, construction, engineering field is all about. And so I developed this program. It grew to very successful. I had like over 80 children participating in it, and then COVID hit. So I'm hoping now to restart it now that, the vaccine's out and things are, we're getting programming together. We're getting in person again together. So I'm going to restart that. But I felt very, very satisfied. My soul was being satisfied because I felt like I was teaching girls about, what architects do. And I was, removing the prejudice of what it is that you do and kind of explaining. And these were young girls. These are like from ages 8 to 12. Then I decided to involve the high school students for volunteering. And it kind of just morphed into a really beautiful program where we could talk about, the different career paths in a very fun way.
I'm curious, how do you explain to an 8-year-old girl or 10-year-old that you want to be an architect? So if they were listening to you, what would you say?
You don't explain, you show them, you let them play with something like either Legos, or in my case, I combined Minecraft with Legos. And the idea wasn't even mine. It was my daughter who, after the first time that I did this event, she said that was a disaster. It was like so boring. I'm like, please tell me how I can make it better. And she goes, well, for one, don't talk. Show me like I want to play. I want to learn something, but I don't want to know that I'm learning. I'm like, okay, I get it.
How old was she?
She was just 11 or 12, but she got that mouth, it's like honesty. She's like,
she was like, that's from you?
Oh, I don't know, probably. But anyways, so I took that to heart and actually incorporated what she was saying. And then at the time, she was playing with Minecraft a lot. And I don't know if you're familiar with Minecraft, but it's like such a fun, easy little 3D tool they build up. And actually all the pieces look like Legos. So I got the idea of taking Legos, real Legos, and Minecraft. And I enticed the kids, okay, come and play Minecraft. I didn't tell them, hey, you're going to learn what an architect does or what a builder does. I said, you're going to learn, you're just going to play Minecraft. And we're like, yeah, okay, we'll go to this event. So they started playing the Minecraft, but I gave them an assignment. And then I said, once you build it in Minecraft, which they would do like in 10 minutes, they were done. I said, now you're going to build it with Legos. And they're like, oh, okay. So then they had to build it, and then they would get stuck. And that's when we had people kind of help them, show them how to build it. And then when you're talking about building, you're talking about constructability, engineering, like, the beam is deflecting, all that stuff. So we got into that conversation. And then after they were done with that, so now you got to draw it. Like, what? Yeah, you got to draw it, because that's what an architect does. At the end, after we would finish the session, I said, now you just learn what an architect does, what a builder does, and what an engineer does. And they were like, oh, okay. So that became very successful. And again, like I say, I'm looking forward to doing the program again now that, we're all starting to get back together again. Yeah.
That's awesome. And how do you know? Well, you don't know because it's probably been so recent, but I'm curious, how can we track the success rate? How many of them get into architecture or engineering?
That's a good thing that you're asking. Of course, COVID kind of stopped everything, but we do have a database of the kids. And I could just tell you that we are tracking some of the girls. One of them is my daughter, that I don't know, mysteriously, she was she liked the career path, and I want to say that she learned something by doing this event, and then later on volunteering, because then she became a volunteer to help younger kids do it. So, yeah, and a couple of her friends, too, they're really talented, and they just didn't know.
So, you said something, your daughter, I love how you took her feedback. I have found in my life that my kids, especially the ones that are more vocal, they come to our lives to really guide us. We obviously we're the parents and we're guiding them, but there's feedback that we get from them on how to become even better, how to evolve. I think that, I don't know if you've seen it like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they come with so many fresh ideas and perspectives, and that's an important thing to the growth of a person. It's very easy to kind of get stuck in your ways and only view things a certain way. And, it's important to listen. And the young people, they come without prejudice. Or sometimes they do have a prejudice, but could be because they just don't know about a career path. But they teach us so much more about everything else. You mentioned digital marketing, all those things. We couldn't be where we are today in the business-wise if we didn't really embrace digital marketing and social media. And we have a person that's dedicated just to that, and she's great at it, at understanding what kind of impact that's going to have to your branding
organization. And the kids, the younger generation, it's so important for innovation. Right.
Now we're going to have, I wanted to tell you, now we're going to have what they refer to as an externship at Our Lady of Lourdes Academy. That's where my youngest daughter, Eva, goes to school. And we're going to have that, I think it's on November 23rd. And that's basically where several students from the high school come. They're all girls. They come to our office and they're going to be exposed. We're going to actually show them what an architect does, what an interior designer does, what a graphic designer does, the construction process. We're going to take them to one of our projects that's almost nearly complete. So I think now we've kind of like evolved. Like as my daughter has grown, I have also kind of like followed her and tried to find ways that I could continue to be a role model and, talk about the profession, women in construction. Women in architecture is the same thing as women in construction, right? And this has been another great opportunity for me to help young girls learn about a career path and that they maybe wouldn't have considered because they thought it had too much math or they had something else.
So what has this done for you? What has architecture done for you? The industry has done for you? How do you want to see at the end of your career life? How do you want to see this industry? look in retrospect, what changes would you want to see, and what has it done for you?
That's a loaded question. I would say, well, I know that me personally, I know that the path of an architect is it's until you die. Most architects don't really retire. They just you're an artist. You're creating and you're evolving. So I know me personally, I may not be running my business. I hope I'm not running my business on a day-to-day when I'm 70, but I think I'm going to be involved and perfecting my craft. What I would like to see moving forward into the future, I do want to see more women in the workforce of architecture. I want to see more licensed women, but I also want to see more work-life balance. I think our clients put a lot of pressure to complete projects and sometimes it's not healthy for anyone involved, not even the clients. So I would love to be able to make sure that the profession gets a little bit healthier on that side. Because you were talking about that, you and I were talking about the suicide rate in construction, and that's a very stressful industry to be in, and I wasn't aware of that. That's devastating.
And I think that the industry has the second highest rate in suicide.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And that's the thing. I just learned about this 2 years ago. I've been in this industry for 33 years. Yeah. In multiple roles, and I didn't know.
It makes a lot of sense. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, the new generation individuals that are like my daughter's age, she's 16 right now. Let's say from 16 to 30. They're not putting up with this. They're not interested in working 16-hour days on Saturdays and Sundays. So they're on to something. They have a better understanding. The life is short. There's a balance that we have to achieve. And I think that that's the part where, again, we can learn from that young generation coming up.
The topic of diversity and inclusion, I'm very passionate about it too. It's not only about the way we look. It's also about embracing the younger generation too. You hear in our industry that is so traditional, people talking about younger people. They don't like to work. That kind of, I don't know if you've heard that, but.
Oh, yeah.
And I always ponder the question, who raised them? Because who raised your daughter? Who raised mine? Mm-hmm. And, I'm actually, they have forced me to look at life in a different way. At the end of the day, you've said it many times today, you don't get time back.
You don't get it back.
Time is you don't get it back. It's a commodity and you do not get it back. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that we give our families, our people, the people we know, is our state. Whether we live in suffering or in a state of no suffering. There's only those two ways to live. I follow this school in India, O&O Academy, and I've learned that. And, I have been in suffering most of my career. And when I say suffering, the stress, the fear, and that's what happens in our industry. And I see the face of suffering. Not a lot of people in this industry have the blessing of having your husband, like that relationship, a fulfilled relationship, your kids, as hard as it has been. Not a lot of people have that. And not a lot of people, they go to work, they fulfill themselves with the buildings that they're doing, but in the process, they go home to alcohol, to drugs, and it's not right. And we have the ability to change it. We as leaders of the industry have the ability to change it. And you said it, even the clients that put these deadlines on, they themselves go through those processes.
They do.
And, you're trying to... we try to approach construction as manufacturing. And the reality is that there's nothing that we can do, nothing without people.
Agreed.
You can put a ton of material on a job site, deliver on time. You can have the perfect drawings, the perfect everything. And if you don't have the energy of the people, you won't be able to do it. Mm-hmm. So what would it be a building? I'm in a lot of meditation, and we're energy, and we are energy. The energy that we bring in. What would it be if we can create from empowering energy, from an empowering emotion? And the energy that we live in those projects, sometimes I wouldn't want to jump in those buildings.
Right.
And I kind of want to gravitate a little bit into what you do because talking about energy and sustainability, because to me, it should go together. You're very passionate about sustainability. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we employ into our design practices passive green design. That basically means like you don't need a mechanical system when you can have cross ventilation. Those types of things. Situating the building to capture the natural breezes, using overhangs, things like that are not going to be increasing the energy consumption. That we do. We also design buildings that need third-party certification, like United States Green Building Council or Green Globes, stuff like that. But I think these concepts are not new. They're not new. If you go back 40, 50 years, maybe even less, you'll see that many of the projects, many educational facilities, many houses, or the majority here in South Florida, were designed without air conditioning. Why is that? Because it was a different mindset at the time. I think, again, it's shifting the mindset to the owners. And COVID is a great way to segue into that conversation. Now everybody is thinking, oh yeah, outside, let's go outside. Hello, that's not a new concept either. You can learn outside. You can have a hybrid classroom area that opens up to the outside, and then you bring the natural light. Everybody's talking about vitamin D. Hello. It's like if it was new. It's not new. We're not inventing anything new. We just have to change that mindset to let the architects and the clients, sometimes they want to, but they're also kind of connected to, the standards or the ways things have always been done. So every time you have an opportunity to break that, there's going to be friction. There's going to be friction from the establishment. But, and you're on the end because you're building it. So that's an easy part. You come in and you execute. You execute that idea that the architect has together with his client, because the architect can't do anything without a client.
Yes. Where on the other hand, when we get it, we sometimes have ideas that they're not necessarily embraced. So a lot of times, look what happened. We've had buildings collapsing and stuff, right? A lot of times you're married to your design, or you're married to the concept that you had, or the budget, whatever. But we're not necessarily open to listening to things that might cause friction to the original idea we had. And sometimes I think that our industry needs to change in that way. Be more collaborative and more embracing change, that to create the best version of our projects and without compromising the health of the people in the building. Sometimes we build hospitals and we create more damage to the people that are involved in the construction of the hospital.
Right.
But we don't track that.
Right. No, that's true. We're not tracking that. That's a good point.
So I would like to thank you for being here. This is not the last time we're going to meet. There's so much to talk. And I'd like to ask you if there's something that you would want to say that I missed, that I didn't ask you.
No, but maybe.
Go ahead.
We didn't talk much about diversity and inclusion. How do you feel about the new emphasis that's being put on diversity and inclusion?
I want to do an episode completely on diversity and inclusion, but I am very passionate about it. I think, and it's the idea of embracing that change, the possibilities, allowing people to brainstorm ideas, and the emphasis that is being put, in my perspective, it's created by the same generation that is growing. More companies are seeing, there's the gender issues, the issues with race, and companies are seeing the diversity of the population is changing.
Right.
So I think a lot of that is driven by, the revenue of large companies that are. I don't know what's your take on diversity.
I agree with what you're saying, and I bring it up only because we're both women in construction. But the issue and we're both Hispanic, right? So the issue of diversity and inclusion is going to be far reaching beyond the woman, Hispanic. It's going to be much more than that. So I think if there's an issue now of lack of inclusion or lack of opportunity for women in particular, I think that issue is only going to be, more evident as you start moving forward into other groups, right? Because our industry hasn't been, it's notoriously homogeneous, right? So that's going to be an interesting thing. I think it's very important, again, to embrace the change that is moving forward, as you mentioned, by the younger generation. And at the same time, we have to be careful not to get, overzealous and create multiple pockets of distinction where people feel that they have to categorize themselves. That, I think, is not...
That's dangerous.
That's dangerous too.
Yeah.
So I think embracing the change, accepting it, bringing that positivity is all a win-win.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we came to this world to live by ourselves.
Correct.
It's connection is huge.
Right.
In connection also in moments of pain and like COVID, right? I'm going to actually close with this question. I want to know what happened in your company through COVID. What happened through your head? What went through your head, through your emotions? How do you handle that? Because I know you went through several, downturns. So what was this different from the one in 2008?
Well, I want to say that I don't think it was a downturn because thankfully we were very, very fortunate that the mayor Jimenez did not shut down the architecture and construction industry. It was considered to be essential. Had that not been the case, we would be having a completely different story. But I think that was critical. What we did specifically, we took very proactive measures before the lockdown happened. And we had only 4 stations that had complete remote access. And before the lockdown happened, everyone in our business, everyone without exception had 100% remote access. And thankfully I did that before because, the IT consultants got very, very busy. And had we not reacted in a timely manner, we would not have been able to have operated when the lockdown took place. But thankfully, we have had several people that have come down with have been infected with COVID, but no one's serious.
Thank God.
Thank God. And, we give people choices. I believe firmly in giving people the choice. You don't feel well, you don't have to get tested, but you have a remote access. So if you are starting to sniffle, please stay home. But I'm not going to mandate anyone to get a vaccine because I believe that's between, a person and their doctor and what's best for them.
I heard the other day that, people used to say, it's funny. People say, don't talk about politics. And don't talk about religion. And now it's don't talk about the vaccine, whether you have it or not. It's a sore subject. So for a lot of people have different opinions. So.
Well, I think as long as people, use people have a personal responsibility to take care of themselves first, and then to be mindful of others. So if someone is coming to the office and they're exhibiting signs, they're sniffling, and they say it's allergies, I say you don't really know. So just go home.
Yeah, that's it. That's a touchy subject. Well, thank you so
much
you, for coming here. And I love growing with you. I have an invitation I have to extend to you. But thank you so much. And I really commend you for everything that you've done. I know it's not easy. You're a great mother. You're a great wife, a great friend. You're trying to do excellent everything that you do. And I know that doesn't come easy, but I respect you and I'm grateful for the projects that we've done together. I wish we can do much more together, learn and grow old, learning and collaborate.
Don't say grow old together. No, we're going to stay young together.
Young together, yes.
Thank you, Patricia. I feel the same way too. I really appreciate you inviting me here to talk. And these were tough questions, great questions.
Good. I'm learning.
Thank you for listening to Thriving in Construction, the podcast with Patricia Bonilla. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support the podcast, please share it with others and leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you have any suggestions or any related topics you would like us to tackle in our future episodes, feel free to reach Patricia by sending her a message through the website anchor.fm/thrivinginconstruction or find her on LinkedIn. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week here in Thriving in Construction, the podcast.